wise and 7 foolish bridesmaids waiting for the groom. He put up a slide with a number of troubling events that are currently going on in our world. Even though most of the things that were on there I was well aware of, yet deep within me, it stirred a fear of the end. Not that I have any idea when the end will come, but yet I do know the end is near. The stirring of fear in my heart is wrong. It chokes out that space that we are to use, or God has called us to use, to abide. Yes, fear is real, but in light of eternity, does it change anything? Does it help press toward the goal or run the race that is set before us? No, it doesn't. There are many good habits in life that I can think of, and at times we should be using them, we should employ them, but none of them should crowd out the time that God has called us to take to abide in Him. Over the years, I have kept coming back to Psalm chapter 1. And I'm just actually going to read that. Psalm 1. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers. But whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on His law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. Not so the wicked, they are like chaff that the wind blows away. Therefore the wicked shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to destruction. The spiritual grounding that comes from rooting ourselves in the Word is stated very clearly here. But most importantly, rooting ourselves in the God of creation, being like a tree planted by streams of water. There's nothing that can compare with this. So I urge you to take the time to abide. Now, time is both very broad and yet so precise. For me, taking the time to sit down and write out the sermon has been a stark reminder of how I use time. I found myself doing a lot of soul searching and asking myself questions like, if the end was today, what would my truth telling be? Or do I really take time to abide? Stepping back and evaluating our lives is so hard, and it does take time. Often time that we aren't willing to take, or simply don't take. It's hard to do this, and yet sadly, it's something that we should be often doing. I don't even take the time each day in the busyness of life to read the Bible. Then the day winds down, and as Kim and I spend time in prayer, I don't always even take the proper time to bring our burdens and challenges before God. It's almost like we just check the box. I've often wished that there was an easier solution to this, but there isn't. We must simply stop and take the time to seek Him. One of my good friends did a reverse giving challenge a number of years ago. He felt convicted to give 90% of his wage and live on 10%. The catch was that they didn't tell anyone. They carried on with their life like nothing had changed. He had many different stories of God's faithfulness through the season. One of which was someone randomly paying for his groceries as he went to the till with more groceries than he had money for. In fact, he only had money for a jug of milk. He told stories of being generous to random strangers he would meet, and as a result, seeing God do incredible work in their lives. Now, I'm not in any way suggesting this is something we must do, give 90% and live on 10, unless God has laid that on your heart. My point is this. It took all he had to make this happen. He had to dig deep into the well of motivation and self-control and perseverance to be faithful to God's call on his life. Even though this was just for a season, it brings such a valuable lesson to each of us. Regardless of God's call on our life, regardless of if it's giving 90% of our money or just simply being faithful to our loving neighbor, or faithful and loving to our neighbor, God asks each of us to spend our time wisely. To spend our time living as each day could be our last. So my challenge to you then is this. Take stock of the truth that is time.